Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to KP. Annalise here. So Holy Spirit was leading me to share. Make sure you test the spirit by the spirit to make sure it's a word that is for you, what parts are for you, and if it's a right now word or if it's a shelter word. So Holy Spirit was leading me to share because he had me hear something that kind of clicked everything into place and that made a lot more sense. As you go along this kingdom marriage journey, there's a space that you get to that you kind of just you're wanting to understand why you're wanting to understand what's going on, and as Holy Spirit begins to minister to you to break down what is going on, why it's happening, basically, when it comes down to the divine separation with the divine restoration in the space of a kingdom marriage journey. Most of the time, that one I'm speaking of is going to be the ones that were already married or already married in the world, in culture and whatnot, but they don't have a foundation that's built on God, which makes it something that can be easily broken. When you have that three-stranded cord, it's not three-stranded cord, it's not easily broken. But when it's just you two, of course, it's easily broken. And you can see there's a lot of things once you get into the divine separation, you get to understand there was a lot of things that you needed to work on, a lot of things you needed to heal from, mommy issues, daddy issues, family issues in general. Even the way that you saw God and how you saw God, and in turn, how you saw yourself. A lot of us do not have any type of recollection of who God is, revelation of who God is, um, as well as this space of not even understanding how he sees us to understand how to love ourselves, because it says, paraphrasing, the one that they were the disciples, they were asking Jesus, what's the most important law, and Jesus was saying to love God with all thy heart, but in juxtaposition to this, to also love thy neighbor as thyself. But what we don't understand is, and what we don't pay attention to, is that part of love thy neighbor, and we focus on that, but we don't pay attention to the part where it says as thyself. And if you don't love yourself, of course you're going to treat your neighbor as you would treat yourself. And that is where we kind of get tripped up at, and we don't understand, and we don't get that, and we don't realize that we bring that into every relationship that we have. Relationships is not just romantic relationships. Romantic, or excuse me, relationships are going to be anything with a noun, a person, place, or thing. That's your relationship with food, your relationship with shopping, your relationship with money, your relationship with TV, your relationship with your pet, the relationship with your your car, the relationship with your house. It's going to be anything, any person, place, or thing, any noun is going to be your relationship. And we don't realize how um the love and affection, as well as the things that we were deprived of when we were children or when we were younger, and the reprogramming that was done through a lot of traumatic experiences that we've had, whether that would have been as a kid or, coming up as an adult, because we didn't have those principles and Holy Spirit activated within us to reallocate that energy, to make sure it's that space of, hey, you're that fourth man in the fire, where you come out not even smelling like smoke, let alone not even being burned. Or off, for that matter, because if you're boiled alive, like, you're done anyways. We don't realize that, and we don't realize that's what we're bringing into every relationship. So whatever you're running from, if you have not dealt with what you're running from, you're just bringing it with you, and you're bringing it with you into every relationship that you have. It is a domino effect, and a lot of times we're running to things that don't love us back. Cuffing season, you are the things we love that don't love us back. And so when it comes down to that, you are seeing, you're not able to see how you are bringing that into your romantic relationship, especially with the mommy issues and the daddy issues, and you don't understand that, how that is trained your thinking, trained your thoughts, trained your way you see things, trained the way that you feel, trained the way that you perceive things, how you analyze things, how you take things in, and how you push things out, how you give things off. We don't realize that. So that was the storms that were taking place, and those storms that were taking place and clashing with one another, with you two just being together and not having Jesus in the middle to have that three-stranded cord. That is what causes the space of it being a separation. Not only that, is part, mainly the part of it is because we don't realize that we are keeping the marriage or keeping that spouse on a pedestal. And God does not. God is a jealous God. He does not like idols, and he will cut the heads off of idols. So he will go ahead and come in and bulldoze that. And it will be that part where you're brought to your feet. There will be something that happens, and you are brought to Abba's feet, and you are literally begging Abba, look, help me. And you're it's not even at a point of, and we understand that we're heirs, we're daughters, we're sons, we don't have to beg. But when you're in the world and you don't understand this at first, that's how you are come. That's how you will come, because you will be in such a level of desperation. And when you come in such that level of desperation, now holy, because you've come to Abba, he's like, okay, I got you. Because anytime that you've seen the children of Israel in distress, Abba always came to their rescue. Always. Until it was that space where it got to the point where, like, look, you've called, I've came. You've called, I've came. You've called, I came. Over and over and over and over and over again. And yet you still, no matter how many times I send my prophets, no matter how many times I give you warnings, you're still. So when we want to be stiff necked and stubborn and keep doing what we want to do and not surrendering to Abba to allow him to do what he needs to do, because in the space of us having free will, it's yes, you have free will, but it's choose your heart. Are you going to do it your way and walk on the path of death, or are you going to do it Abba's way and walk on the path to life? Choose your heart. So a lot of times we chose ourselves and we walked on that path to death, and we didn't understand why everything was crumbling, why there's no communication, why there's no love, why there's no understanding, why are we always fighting, why are we always arguing, why are we always going back and forth, why does it always seem like we're never on the same page, why does it always seem like we're never getting anywhere, why does it always seem that we're having the same arguments and conversations on repeat in the space of just it sounds like a broken record at this point. We don't understand that. And so that's where that separation has to take place, because it's those storms that are being separated. So they're being dealt with. As those storms are being dealt with, then you're beginning to understand that. You're beginning to realize that. And as you begin to heal, as you go along the way, your divine restoration, as long as Abba has been telling you that's what he's going to do, because sometimes that divine separation is simply a separation. But if he's giving you a promise, and he's giving you that promise to say that there's a divine separation for a divine restoration, yes, I'm going to restore it. And a lot of times he's not going to say, yes, I'm restoring it. Sometimes he's just giving you that more that's along the lines of restoring it. So you know you're on the path of restoration, which is his yes, he's going to restore it. So as you are walking on that path, there's a space where it bleeds together, where the separation or the restoration looks a lot like the separation. When it bleeds together like that, it can get a little bit discouraging and confusing, because we think that the space of restoring means that back together, and it's okay, we're in the same vicinity and it's us coming together, where it's like, that's not completely what Abba is saying. Not that he's saying he's not going to do that, because that time, that appointed time will come. That's almost like the climax or like the end of the story. But there's still also the stuff in between. Even when you're looking at the climax of it, there's a lot of stuff that's the rising action to the climax of the story. So with that being said, you're going to go through a lot of spaces and places where now you are being restored in many ways, whether that is restoring you in your joy, restoring you in your peace, restoring you in your healing, excuse me, restoring you in your health. Abba's going to be restoring you in many ways before you guys are restored back together in that space. And a lot of it is you going through it all and going through all of this training, not only for your mantle, but also because your marriage is a part of your mantle. It's also as far as in part of the promise, it's also going to be in the space of you understanding that this is something that is crucial. You're going to begin to realize you are not the same person you were. You are not the same person that even you were like the day before. You are growing. You are growing constantly, and you're going to see how you are growing constantly, and you're going to see how you are just not the same person. And as you continue to grow, there's this space of like, there's a space of freedom, there's a space of creativity, there's a space of peace, there's a space of joy, and you begin to see how um It's unlocking that space of whose you are and who you are. When you begin to unlock those, you begin to love yourself in such a way that only makes you want to pour out that love to that person. And that's that space that you have to get. But in order for you to even get to that part, you have to first understand whose you are. And understanding whose you are, you're a child of God. In the space of that, you have to get to such a desperation, and meaning that you have to get to a point where, look, you need help, and there's nobody else to help you but God. We don't understand that our toiling and all of the things that we're trying to do, and it's very sad, and it's sad to see, it's sad to watch, it's sad to even understand and see the way Abba sees it, because it really looks like this space of a parent that has a child, and that child is trying to do everything they can to get a plate of food. um, it would be the equivalent of like you literally watching your kid trying to scramble, cleaning up anything. They're not they won't relax. They won't play. They won't explore. They won't talk to you. They just scramble around, trying to do anything and everything they can just to get the plate of food that you've prepared for them, and that's theirs, whether they do all of those things or not. And it's simply just talking to Abba. And it gets heavy when you see it that way. The toiling and the space of like, okay, you're digging yourself into a hole, and you dig that hole deeper and deeper and deeper, and he keeps saying, like, come to me so I can get you out. Come to me so I can get you out. But us being a lot of thank you, Holy Spirit. Tripping over my words. Goodness gracious, I rebuke you, Satan. It's a space of oh, thank you, Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit is saying this is how they will be when they come with confessions, and they come with letters, and they come with the communication. They're going to be stumbling over their words. So give them the time, give them the space, give them the leeway, the grace, the kindness, and the mercy to get it out. Don't rush them. Don't interrupt them. Don't try to say, oh, I know what you're saying. Da, da, da. Mm-mm. Let them get it out, because they need to be able to say it. Sometimes it's that space of them actually speaking it that is a space of like courage, and a space that's a milestone for them. So you got to let them get it out. You got to let them say what they need to say. Excuse me. With that being said, I was just highlighting that part of just um, how it just is very sad to watch, and it's just like, look, I got you, but you need to come to me. And so we have to get to that space. A lot of us just being very stiff-necked, very stubborn, thinking we know everything, being very prideful. We have to get to that space where nobody will help us, and we feel betrayed, we feel backstabbed, we feel manipulated, we feel talked about, all of the things. We have to get to that point in order to only be able to have Abba to help us out. And that's not because he deemed it so. It was because, more so because we weren't listening in the first place. We weren't hearing. He's always speaking, he's always talking, and we weren't listening in the first place. We weren't listening to what he was saying. We weren't doing what he was needing us to do, not because he needs us to just be this robot or anything, but because his way is better, because his way is provision, because his way is protection. When we go down the path of what we want to do and how we want to do it, it's a space of our will. So it means our bill. We're going to have to pay for it, we're going to have to maintain it, we're going to have to sustain it, and if we stop, it stops. But also that space of, as we continue down that path just leads to death. It's going to fall apart, it's going to crumble, because it's sinking sand. It's not built on Jesus. So when we choose Jesus and we choose his way is better, in which case we have the provision, we have the protection. And then because it's his way, it's his will, it's his bill, so he's going to pay for it, he's going to maintain it, he's going to sustain it. And so when you stop, it doesn't stop, because it's not based on you, it's not the foundation on you. And so I was just highlighting that we really have to get to that space of desperation, and the space of needing him and wanting him. And the only way that we're going to get that way is usually by us digging ourselves in our own pit. And sometimes he has to allow us to just keep digging that pit, keep digging that pit, until we get to the point of realizing nobody can help us but God. Nobody can help us but God. Nobody can pull us out of that pit but God. And of course, Abba will have people and whatnot around you as you come up out of there, those destiny helpers to help you along your way. But there's always this crucial point, and you hear it in every testimony. There's always this crucial point that you begin to understand and notice, like, yeah, nobody can help me. Nobody can help me. And even the help that you are getting, whether it be from whoever it may be from, even the help that you are getting or receiving, um, it's not the help that you need, because you need that soul healing work. You need that spirit healing work, and they're not able to give that to you. And this is what you see in a lot of spaces where you have people that are rich, people that are wealthy, people that do have this, that, and though, and able to take a yacht this way, a private jet this way, etc., etc. You think they're well off. You think they're this and that and though. You think that, but we've had prime example, those who are rich, those who are famous, those who are well known, um, taking offing themselves, offing themselves because they're dealing with something internally, and they're dealing with something internally that money cannot pay for, money cannot buy, money cannot heal, money cannot salve. Same thing with just fame. Fame cannot heal it, fame cannot salve it, fame cannot take care of it. You need Jesus. You need Jesus. And so we have to get to that space of desperation of only one that can help us is Abba. And this is the part of having to steward over those kingdom spouses, those that are the standards. This is, if anybody feels you, I feel you, because this is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. One of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life was to allow my spouse to to be let over to Abba and let Abba do his thing. Trusting, believing, having faith, because it's like, that's Abba. He won't take care of it. But the way that you cannot come through for them when Abba's telling you, don't do that, don't help them with this, don't help them with that, don't pray for them, or don't pray for them in that way. You have to refrain from getting in his way, because we have to understand when helping is actually helping. And we have to understand when stepping out of the way is actually helping. And just to break down the difference, when you are stepping out of the way, that's going to help them more than you ever know. Sometimes stepping out of the way, when we do that in our own volition and we do that in our own understanding, stepping out of the way is not the thing that we should have did, especially because most of the time is based off of punishment and emotion. But when you have that Peter like heart and you want to step in and you want to take care of it and you want to just do it for them, that does not help them. Thank you, Holy Spirit. He's showing it to me as swimming. If you get in there and you float for them, or you paddle for them, or you use your arms and your legs to swim for them, are they swimming? No, you are. So they're not learning. You are. They're not building experience. You are. And you're not always going to be there when they're in the water. You're not always going to be there when they're at the deep end. So you have to be able to steward them well. You can love them well, but you have to be able to steward them well, and understanding that helping them sometimes is not helping them at all. On the flip side, understanding that when helping them is actually helping them, or it's enabling them. It's enabling them to keep running. It's enabling them to keep putting it off, to keep procrastinating, to not facing what they need to face, to not actually swim when you're doing it for them and helping them. You're swimming for them. Don't do that. You can't do that, because they're never going to learn to swim, and they're never going to build the experience to know what to do when they're in high water, when they're in deep water. they're going to have to be able to pull on Abba themselves. They can't keep pulling off of your prayers. They can't keep pulling off of your faith. They can't keep pulling off of your experiences and your testimony. There comes a point at, even with you, as you heard of Abba, you heard of the God that saves, you heard of the God that redeems, you heard of the God that resurrects, but then you had to understand that for yourself. They're going to have to do the same thing, because when it comes down to it, you're not always going to be there to be able to help them when there's a demon around, when there's a legion around, when puny boys around, when there's something with demonic activity that is going on. They're going to have to be able to be sensitive enough to discern that and pick that up and then bring it back to Abba, so Abba can minister to them on what to do for. And they're going to have their ears circumcised enough, their eyes circumcised enough to be able to see and to hear, to understand where to bring it to, who to bring it to, what they're listening to. You cannot do that for them. And that's mainly part of the process, because there's a mantle that y'all are called to carry, and that's being called to carry it two by two. In that space, you have to be trained up, and most of the time, as the standard, you're trained up before the prodigal minded spouse. And when they're trained up, y'all are carrying that mantle together. Understand that you have your separate mantles and then a mantle that you carry together. And so this is all the bigger picture to it that we don't get and we don't understand. This is all the bigger picture to it that it's like, is it really that big of a deal? But yes, it is that big of a deal, because you have people that are attached to you. They have people that are attached to them. And then you two together have people that are attached to you together. And in that, just as you've had those destiny's helpers that have helped you, that have brought you further along, that have given you revelation, that have given you understanding, all I can explain it as, hang on, all I can explain it as is there was a point where, hang on, where you realize that if you had known that beforehand, you would have skipped over a lot of heartache. If you would have known that before, you would have skipped over a lot of, thank you, Holy Spirit. You would have skipped over a lot of dysfunction. You would have skipped over a lot of drama. You would have skipped over a lot of stuff had you known, had someone told you. And then understanding when there was someone that told you there, it was like, geez, thank you for that revelation, because now I know what this is, and now I know how to go into it. Now I know how to handle it. Now I know how to bring it back to Abba, and bring it back to Abba every time, so that he can help me minister on what's going on, to see if we need to do this differently. You're going to have to go back and reach back for those souls that are attached to you. It's just how it is. It's just how it's called to be. And we have to get to that point where the only person that we can call on is Abba, so that we can then begin to understand whose we are. Once we understand whose we are, as we are going through that, Abba is ministering to us who we are. And when we begin to understand who we are, we begin to see ourselves in a new light. And in seeing ourselves in that new light, we begin to love on ourselves in a different way. And as we love on ourselves in a different way, we begin to love on others in that way. But that is what Holy Spirit was leading me to share. So go ahead, do the thing. Remember, God is love, Jesus, the way, the truth, and the life. And I will be back on the next video. Okay, ciao.